This month, May, is Mental Health Awareness Month. Now, May is also home to a list of other national observances, like Military Appreciation Month, Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, even National Asparagus Month, and so on. It's not just May either. Every year, week, even day of the year seems to have its own list of national awarenesses and appreciations. But most important to my story is this month's National Mental Health Awareness Month. 2 years, 7 months, and 30 days ago, I was put into a psychiatric hold for the first time in my life. I was a junior in high school at the time. Little did I know that after this time would follow a diagnosis of depression, anxiety, complex PTSD, and an eating disorder, as well as 3 suicide attempts, 2 more inpatient hospitalizations, 2 partial hospital programs, and 1 intensive outpatient program. This, in time, roughly accounts to about 1,200 hours of recovery, or in other words, 171 consecutive days of school missed. For reference, there is about 180 school days in an academic year. So, in short, I spent a lot of time and energy putting up a fight against my own mind. But if ever asked, or even if I ever could, I would not go back and change a single thing about my story, despite its ups and downs. Hopefully, by the end of this, you'll better understand exactly why that's my case and why I hold my story, my narrative, very near and dear to my heart. So, Mental Health Awareness Month. Sounds like a great thing, right? In theory, yes. Who doesn't love a good awareness campaign? Besides, mental health care has never been more important than now during the COVID-19 pandemic. But even before all of this, the prevalence of mental illness was already on the rise. Mental Health America's data sets from 2018, 2019, and 2020 all show an increase in not only adult and adolescent depression, but as well as suicidal ideation. So thus, an awareness campaign, right? But in practice, this campaign falls short of long-standing, prominent change. For starters, what happens when the month of May comes to a close and June, July, August, and so on follow? Mental health and illness don't just disappear along with it. Nor is this month of May just for companies to slap on slogans like mental health matters or stamp away the stigma onto their merchandise and profit off of in our inherently capitalistic society. And it is certainly not just about awareness either. Don't get me wrong, I think awareness is a fantastic first place to start. But that awareness does not always guarantee action, or that the individual even knows how to successfully and effectively take action in the first place. We need a more tangible bridge between that awareness and action. Thus, I give you the 3 A's of change: acceptance, awareness, acceptance, and action. So, we'll start with what we already know: awareness, identifying the problem at hand. I see you, I hear you, and I may not accept you just quite yet. That's awareness, the enemy of denial. Now, the tricky thing about awareness is that it exists not only in its individual nature, but in much larger contexts as well. Specifically, there are many different factors that can contribute to an individual's mental health, such as societal, biological, ecological, environmental, historical, and even political attributes. This is known as the eco-social model of health. with this integration applied to mental health awareness, I can start to become more aware of how mental health is not just an absence of illness. Or maybe I am making myself more aware with the different political bills at a local and federal level that pertain to crisis intervention and mental health policy. Whatever it is, any awareness is good awareness, and a fantastic place to start. So once we have that awareness, once I can see the issue in its full form, then only can I move on to acceptance. Acceptance is a dynamic learning curve of honesty, vulnerability, and persistence. It's certainly not easy, and nor is it linear. In fact, most rewarding things in life aren't at all. But the cool thing about acceptance is that I don't completely have to understand the issue in order to accept it. I don't even have to like it in the first place. I just have to have the willingness to endure it. For example, I myself am not a physicist. I don't completely understand the ins and outs of gravity. Yet, I coexist with it. I would love to be able to jump 10 feet in the air or float, but I simply can't do that because I exist in the same space as gravity. This is the epitome of change. That is acceptance. You need acceptance in order to lose that one thing and gain the other thing of change. That's the process of change. So in the context of mental health, this might look like I accept a particular diagnosis that I'm given, yet that diagnosis does not define me or who I am. Or maybe I have to accept that I will have to give up some of my free time in order to get the recovery and treatment that I need. In the end, acceptance is a balance, is a non-judgmental balance of what I can and cannot control within my internal and external environment. So once we have that acceptance, we can move on to the final step, action. As daunting as its name and stature may seem, I have found this process of action to be rather easier than the first two. And that's because if you break it down, action is just a culmination of that awareness and acceptance. Put the two together, and you get action. In high school, my track coach used to say to me before a race, "Lena, you've done all the hard work. You've showed up to practice. You've gotten comfortable with the uncomfortable. Now, all you have to do is put it together. All you got to do is run fast." And he was right. He was really, really right. I didn't realize that in the grand scheme of things, but it's true. I have done the learning and the accepting and the understanding to the extent that I can. Now, I just have to put it all into action. Another thing about action is that it exists with change. The two go hand in hand together. So as I take steps along my path of action, I gain change in time. Change doesn't just happen overnight, nor does it happen within one action here or one action there. Change is a process. And if I can accept that fact, accept that it will happen in time, then comes the action. So now we have our recipe for change: awareness, acceptance, and action. But so what? What's all this talk of change? Why does it matter? Well, for one, that's why I'm here. I am only here because I changed. Otherwise, in the long run, I most likely would have succumbed to suicide. That's why I metaphorically stand before you all today, to move beyond this movement of mere awareness and to create as much potential for change as I can. I want to work to see a generation of people that aren't afraid to have hard conversations, where we don't automatically fear what we don't understand. A society in which suicide is not just a dirty word or a joke. In the larger scheme of things, one where schools focus their funding more on student support rather than hiring armed police officers that they nicely call school resource officers. And on the government side of things, one where mental health care is a real priority that's reflected in our country's political agenda. And more personally to me, one where my scars are not something to gawk at or stare at, but where they are symbols of strength and remembrance. But that's a lot to ask for, both in terms of myself and you all right now. That's not going to all happen tomorrow, but we can certainly begin today, and that begins within the individual. My change, my transformation started within myself. I certainly did not want to acknowledge the fact that I needed help. I did not want to accept that my mental health was a sinking ship. I was so afraid of being a burden, and I was all too caught in this common narrative of how asking for help is seen as weak, that it would lead me to suicide before I ever got help. And even after that point, it still took me years to learn that I don't have to like change in order to change. I just have to accept it. And so, with that fact in mind, I stand here today being extremely proud of my own story. My past has made me the person that I am today. I believe that humans are a sum of all their past experiences, both the good, the bad, and everything in between. I will always have my scars, yet that doesn't mean that they have to define me or my future. In fact, I am proud of my scars. They're my story. They're my own symbols of acceptance. Take a look for yourself. This is a tattoo of an orchid that I have on my left wrist. It doesn't cover up my scars. It rather commemorates them. Commemorates them for where I have been, the work that I've done, and how far I have come, my own journey of change. I am extremely proud of that, and ever so grateful for the people, peer and professional, that have helped me get to the place that I am today. And so, if you take just one thing from my words today, I want it to be a hint of awareness, of acceptance, sorry. You already have that awareness topped off by not only my words, but my fellow speakers as well. And so hold on to that. Those seeds of awareness are to be watered with acceptance, and slowly over time, they will grow into larger action and eventually change. But remember, just because I give my plant more water doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to grow faster. Growth and change take time. They take their own time. And next time you see a campaign for Mental Health Awareness Month on social media, rename it to Mental Health Awareness, Acceptance, and Action Month. Thank you.